At the family dinner, my parents said, "You are a burden, we want to live without you." So I never imagined that the people who brought me into this world could destroy me so completely with just a few words. But that's exactly what happened on a cold December evening, surrounded by the warm glow of candles and the smell of roasted turkey that should have meant comfort and love. My name is Elizabeth, and I'm 24 years old. For the past 6 months, I've been living back home after losing my job at a marketing firm during company layoffs. It wasn't by choice. I'd been desperately searching for work, sending out resumes daily, going to interviews that led nowhere. My savings had dried up, and my parents, Anna and Theodore, had reluctantly agreed to let me move back into my childhood bedroom. The dinner started normally enough. My younger brother Jack was there with his girlfriend Rose, both of them fresh out of college and already landing dream jobs in tech. They couldn't stop talking about their new apartment, their expensive vacations, their bright futures. Meanwhile, I sat quietly, picking at my food, trying to ignore the familiar knot of anxiety in my stomach. "So Elizabeth," my father began, his voice carrying that tone I'd grown to dread, the one that meant disappointment was coming. "Any luck with the job search this week?" I forced a smile. I had 2 interviews. One seemed really promising. "That's what you said last week," my mother chimed in, not even looking up from cutting her turkey. "And the week before that." The table went quiet except for the clinking of silverware. Rose shifted uncomfortably in her seat, while Jack suddenly became very interested in his mashed potatoes. "I'm trying my best," I said, my voice smaller than I intended. "The market is really competitive right now." Theodore set down his fork with a deliberate clink that made my heart skip. "Elizabeth, we need to talk." Those 5 words sent ice through my veins. I knew that tone. I knew that look. This wasn't going to be a supportive pep talk. "Your mother and I have been discussing your situation," he continued, his gray eyes cold in the candlelight. "And we've come to a decision." Anna finally looked up, her face stone cold. "We can't keep doing this, Elizabeth. You're 24 years old. You should be independent by now." "I'm trying to be independent," I protested, my voice cracking slightly. "I just need a little more time to get back on my feet." "Time?" Theodore laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You've had 6 months. 6 months of us paying for your food, your phone bill, your gas money. 6 months of you living here rent-free while your brother has already started building his life." I felt heat rising in my cheeks. I didn't ask to get laid off. I didn't ask for any of this. "No, but you're not doing enough to fix it either," Anna said sharply. "You sleep until 10 every morning. You spend half the day on your laptop doing God knows what. You don't contribute to this household in any meaningful way." "That's not true," I whispered, but even as I said it, I could feel the words losing their power. Rose cleared her throat awkwardly. "Maybe we should." "No," Theodore held up his hand. "This needs to be said." He turned back to me, his expression harder than I'd ever seen it. "Elizabeth, you are a burden. A financial burden, an emotional burden. Your mother and I are tired of walking on eggshells around your constant mood swings and excuses." The words hit me like physical blows. I felt my chest tighten, my breathing become shallow. "We want to live without you," Anna added, her voice matter-of-fact, as if she were commenting on the weather. "We want to enjoy our home again, without the constant stress of supporting a grown adult who won't support herself." The dining room spun around me. I gripped the edge of the table, my knuckles white. "You're my parents," I managed to say. "You're supposed to love me unconditionally." "Love doesn't mean enabling," Theodore replied coldly. "We love you enough to stop letting you use us as a crutch." Jack finally spoke up, his voice quiet but cutting. "Maybe they have a point, Liz. I mean, I've been working since I was 16. I've never had to move back home. The betrayal from my brother felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I looked around the table, at my parents' cold faces, at Jack's uncomfortable agreement, at Rose's pitying expression, and realized I was completely alone. "So what are you saying?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "We're saying you have 30 days to find somewhere else to live," Anna said. 30 days to figure out your life, because we're done figuring it out for you. I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the hardwood floor. The sound was harsh and final in the sudden silence. "Fine," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "If that's how you really feel, then fine." I walked to the hallway closet and grabbed my coat, my hands trembling as I fumbled with the buttons. Behind me, I could hear whispered conversations, but I couldn't make out the words over the rushing sound in my ears. "Where are you going?" Anna called after me, and for a split second, I thought I heard concern in her voice. But when I turned around, her expression was still cold. "Away from here," I said. "Isn't that what you wanted?" I walked out into the December night, the cold air hitting my face like a slap. The stars were hidden behind thick clouds, and the streetlights cast long, lonely shadows on the empty sidewalk. I had nowhere to go, no close friends I could call, no boyfriend to run to, no money for a hotel. I found myself walking to the 24-hour diner downtown, the one where I used to go with my high school friends after football games. The neon sign flickered weakly in the darkness, Henry's All-Night Cafe. I'd forgotten the owner's name was Henry. Inside, the diner was nearly empty except for a few truckers and a woman about my age sitting alone at the counter, nursing a cup of coffee. She had short auburn hair and kind eyes, and when she looked up as I walked in, she offered a small smile. I slid into a booth near the window and ordered coffee I couldn't really afford. The warmth of the cup between my hands was the first comfort I'd felt all evening. Rough night. I looked up to see the woman from the counter standing beside my booth. Up close, I could see she had freckles across her nose and was wearing scrubs under her jacket. "Is it that obvious?" I asked, attempting a laugh that came out more like a sob. "Mind if I sit?" she asked. "I'm Rebecca, by the way. And yeah, it's pretty obvious. I've had a few rough nights myself." I nodded, grateful for any human kindness. "Elizabeth." And I think rough night might be an understatement. Rebecca slid into the booth across from me. "Want to talk about it?" Sometimes it helps to tell a stranger. Something about her genuine concern broke down the last of my defenses. I found myself telling her everything, the job loss, living at home, the humiliation at dinner, my parents' cruel words, the 30-day ultimatum. Rebecca listened without judgment, occasionally nodding or making sympathetic sounds. "That's brutal," she said when I finished. "I can't imagine parents saying something so harsh." "The worst part is, maybe they're right," I admitted, staring into my coffee. "Maybe I am just a burden. Maybe I haven't been trying hard enough." "Stop," Rebecca said firmly. "Don't let their words become your truth. I've been there, not exactly the same situation, but I know what it's like to feel worthless because the people who should support you tear you down instead." She leaned forward, her eyes intense. "Can I ask you something? What did you study in college?" "Marketing and communications," I said. "I was actually good at it. I loved creating campaigns, analyzing consumer behavior, writing copy. The layoffs weren't about performance. They cut our entire department. So you have skills. You have talent. You just need the right opportunity." I shrugged. "Apparently not. I've been rejected from dozens of jobs. Have you considered freelancing? Building your own client base while you look for full-time work?" I stared at her. The idea had crossed my mind, but I dismissed it as too risky, too uncertain. I wouldn't even know where to start. Rebecca grinned. Well, as it happens, I might be able to help with that. I'm a nurse, but I also run a small wellness blog on the side. I've been wanting to expand, maybe start a podcast, create better social media content, but I have no idea how to market any of it. My content is good, but nobody sees it. Something sparked in my chest, the first feeling of hope I'd had in months. You're serious? Dead serious. I can't pay you a fortune, but I can pay you something. And if you help me grow my platform, there could be more work. Plus, you'd have portfolio pieces to show other potential clients. I felt tears welling up in my eyes, but for the first time that night, they weren't tears of despair. Rebecca, why would you help me? You don't even know me. Because 6 months ago, I was sleeping on my sister's couch after my ex-boyfriend kicked me out of our apartment, she said simply. Someone helped me then, gave me a chance when I needed it most. I'm just paying it forward. We exchanged phone numbers, and Rebecca promised to call me the next day to discuss details. As I walked back through the cold night, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, possibility. But first, I had to face going back to that house, to those people who had made it clear I wasn't wanted. When I got home, the lights were off except for the porch light they'd left on. I crept upstairs to my room, grateful to avoid another confrontation. As I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I could hear my parents talking in low voices in their room down the hall. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was serious, concerned. Too little, too late, I thought. The next morning, Rebecca called just like she'd promised. We met at a coffee shop near her apartment, and she showed me her blog. It was beautiful, thoughtful posts about mental health, wellness tips, personal stories about overcoming challenges. The content was incredible, but she was right about the marketing. Her social media presence was almost non-existent, and the blog design, while clean, didn't capture attention. This is amazing work, I told her honestly. You're a talented writer. Thanks, as she blushed. I pour my heart into it, but sometimes I feel like I'm shouting into the void. I spent the next 2 hours outlining a complete marketing strategy, social media campaigns, email newsletters, partnership opportunities with other wellness bloggers, SEO optimization for her existing content. Rebecca's eyes got wider as I talked, and I realized something important. I was good at this. Really good. Elizabeth, this is incredible, she said. I had no idea marketing could be so strategic and creative at the same time. It's what I love, I admitted. I forgot how much I love it. We agreed on a contract, part-time work to start, with the possibility of expansion if her platform grew. It wasn't enough to live on independently, but it was a start. More importantly, it was hope. Over the next 2 weeks, I threw myself into Rebecca's project with an energy I hadn't felt in months. I created social media content, redesigned her website, reached out to potential collaboration partners, and started an email campaign targeting her ideal audience. Rebecca was amazed by the results. Her follower count tripled, her blog traffic increased by 400%, and she started getting inquiries about sponsorship opportunities. But the work wasn't just helping Rebecca, it was transforming me. For the first time in months, I woke up excited about the day ahead. I had purpose, creativity, and most importantly, proof that I wasn't the failure my family believed me to be. During those 2 weeks, my parents barely spoke to me. They'd nod politely when we passed in the kitchen, ask perfunctory questions about my job search, but the warmth that had once defined our relationship was completely gone. Jack visited twice, but our conversations were stilted and awkward. It was like I was a ghost haunting my childhood home. The turning point came on a Thursday evening. I was working in my room on a campaign for Rebecca when I heard voices downstairs, not just my parents, but other people. Curious, I crept to the top of the stairs and listened. "We're so proud of Jack," I heard Anna saying. He's already gotten a promotion at his company. And Rose is doing wonderfully too. They're thinking about getting engaged next year. What about Elizabeth? I heard a familiar voice ask, Mrs. Henderson, our next-door neighbor. There was an uncomfortable pause. Elizabeth is figuring things out, Theodore said carefully. She's been living here for months, Anna added, and I could hear the embarrassment in her voice. We've tried to help, but she just doesn't seem motivated to build a life for herself. That's such a shame, Mrs. Henderson clucked sympathetically. Some young people just struggle with the transition to adulthood, don't they? I felt my face burn with humiliation and rage. Here they were, discussing my failures with neighbors, painting me as some lazy, unmotivated burden who couldn't get her life together. That's when something inside me snapped. I went back to my room and opened my laptop. Over the past 2 weeks, I'd been documenting everything I was doing for Rebecca, not just for her records, but because I was proud of the work. I had screenshots of social media growth, analytics showing website traffic increases, testimonials from people who had started following Rebecca's content because of my campaigns. I also had something else, 3 other small business owners who had reached out to Rebecca asking if she could recommend whoever was doing her marketing. I spent the rest of the night working. I created a portfolio website showcasing my work with Rebecca and outlining the services I could offer. I wrote proposals for the 3 businesses that had inquired about my services. I researched other potential clients in the area. By dawn, I had the foundation of my own freelance marketing business. More importantly, I had a plan. I called Rebecca that morning. I need to ask you a favor, I said. Anything, she replied immediately. I need you to be brutally honest about the work I've done for you. If someone asked you whether I was good at what I do, what would you say? Elizabeth, are you kidding? You've transformed my entire platform in 2 weeks. You've taken something I was passionate about but nobody saw and turned it into something that's actually reaching people. You're not just good, you're exceptional. Would you be willing to put that in writing? I'll do you one better, she said. I'll record a video testimonial if you want. What's this about? I told her about my plan. By the end of our conversation, Rebecca was as excited as I was. The next day was exactly 3 weeks since the dinner that changed everything. I had 1 week left before my parents' ultimatum kicked in. But I wasn't going to wait. I spent the morning finalizing contracts with 2 new clients, a local yoga studio and a small bookstore that wanted to expand their online presence. Between Rebecca's work and these new contracts, I would be earning enough to rent a small apartment and support myself. That evening, as my family gathered for dinner, I made my announcement. I have something to tell you all, I said, standing at the head of the table where my father usually sat. Please don't tell us you need more time, Anna said with an exasperated sigh. No, I said calmly. I'm telling you that I'm leaving. This weekend. The silence that followed was deafening. Leaving for where? Theodore asked, suspicion in his voice. I've rented an apartment downtown. I'm starting my own marketing business. I already have 3 clients and enough income to support myself. Jack looked up sharply. Wait, what? I pulled out my phone and showed them Rebecca's website, the before and after analytics, the testimonials from people whose lives had been positively impacted by her content reaching them. This is what I've been doing for the past 2 weeks, I said. While you've been telling neighbors how unmotivated and lazy I am, I've been building something. Anna's face flushed. You heard that? I heard all of it, I said, my voice steady but cold. I heard you telling Mrs. Henderson what a disappointment I am. I heard you making excuses for my existence. Elizabeth, we never said, Theodore started. You said I was a burden, I interrupted. You said you wanted to live without me. You said I was unmotivated and making excuses. So I decided to prove you wrong, not for you, but for me. I pulled up my portfolio website on my laptop and turned it toward them. This is my new business. I already have 3 clients, and I have inquiries from 5 more. I'm making enough money to support myself, and I'm doing work that I love, work that makes a difference for people. Rose leaned forward to look at the screen, her eyes widening. Elizabeth, this is incredible. The design, the strategy, this is professional level work. Thank you, I said, not taking my eyes off my parents. It turns out I wasn't lazy or unmotivated. I was just depressed and demoralized by people who were supposed to believe in me. Jack shifted uncomfortably. Look, Liz, maybe we all said some things. No, I cut him off. You all said exactly what you meant. And you know what? In a way, I'm grateful. Because if you hadn't made it clear that I was unwelcome here, I never would have found the courage to bet on myself. I closed the laptop and looked around the table at their stunned faces. I want you all to know that over the past 2 weeks, I've remembered who I am when I'm not constantly being told I'm not enough. I'm creative, I'm hardworking, I'm talented, and I'm capable of building something meaningful with my life. My voice grew stronger with each word. I also want you to know that I will never forget how it felt to sit at this table 3 weeks ago and be told by my own family that I was a burden they wanted to live without. I will never forget the relief in your voices when you thought you were getting rid of me. Anna's eyes filled with tears, but I felt no satisfaction in it. So here's what's going to happen, I continued. I'm leaving this weekend, just like you wanted. I'm going to build my business and my life, and I'm going to do it without any of you. Elizabeth, please, Theodore said, his voice softer than I'd heard it in months. Maybe we can talk about this. Talk about what? I asked. About how you want to take back calling me a burden. About how you suddenly realize I might actually have value. It's too late for that conversation. I stood up and pushed in my chair. I'll be moved out by Sunday. You can finally have the peaceful home you wanted, free from the stress of supporting your disappointing daughter. I turned to leave, but paused at the doorway. One more thing, I said without turning around. When Mrs. Henderson asks about me next time, you can tell her I'm doing just fine. Better than fine, actually. You can tell her I'm thriving. I went upstairs and continued packing. An hour later, there was a soft knock on my door. It was Anna. Elizabeth. Can I come in? I didn't answer, but I didn't tell her to go away either. She pushed the door open slowly. I wanted to apologize, she said quietly. I continued folding clothes into boxes. For which part? Calling me a burden, or telling the neighbors I was a failure? For all of it, she said, her voice thick with tears. We were wrong. We were frustrated and worried about money, and we took it out on you in the worst possible way. You were worried about money. I laughed bitterly. The $30 a week I was costing you in groceries. The phone bill you've been paying since I was 16 anyway. It wasn't really about the money, she admitted. It was about, we were scared you were giving up. That you were just going to stay in this room forever and never try to build a life. We thought tough love would motivate you. I finally looked at her. Tough love would have been helping me build confidence while I looked for work. Tough love would have been believing in me when I stopped believing in myself. What you did was cruel. I know, she whispered. I know, and I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't undo sitting at that dinner table and feeling like the people who raised me thought I was worthless, I said. Sorry doesn't erase 3 weeks of you treating me like a stranger in my own home. Anna sat down heavily on my desk chair. When I saw what you've built, what you've accomplished, I realized we pushed away someone remarkable because we couldn't see past our own fears. The remarkable person was always here, I said. You just chose to see a burden instead. She was quiet for a long moment. Is there any chance you'd consider staying? We could start over, support you while you build your business. I sealed the box I was packing and wrote books on the side. No, I said simply. I can't build my new life in the place where I was torn down. And honestly, I don't trust any of you to support me. You've shown me who you are when things get difficult. What about Jack? She asked. He feels terrible about what he said. Jack chose to side with you when I needed him most, I replied. That tells me everything I need to know about what I can expect from him in the future. Anna left without saying anything else. I heard her crying in the hallway, but I felt surprisingly little emotion about it. It wasn't that I didn't care, it was that I had finally stopped making their feelings more important than my own. Saturday morning, Rebecca showed up with her car to help me move. My parents hovered awkwardly in the kitchen while we loaded boxes, occasionally offering to help but mostly just watching. Jack arrived as we were loading the last of my things. Liz, wait, he called out as I was about to get in Rebecca's car. Can we talk? I looked at him, really looked at him. My little brother, who I'd helped with homework, driven to baseball practice, cheered for at graduation. Who had sat at that dinner table and agreed that our parents had a point about me being a burden. What's there to talk about, Jack? I was wrong, he said. What I said that night was wrong. I don't know, I was trying to stay out of it, and I ended up making it worse. You weren't trying to stay out of it, I corrected. You were trying to stay on the winning side. There's a difference. His face crumpled. I'm your brother. I should have defended you. Yes, you should have, I agreed. But you didn't. And now I know that when things get difficult, I can't count on you to be in my corner. That's not fair, he protested. One mistake doesn't define our whole relationship. It wasn't one mistake, Jack. It was choosing to kick me when I was already down. It was agreeing that I was a burden when I needed someone to believe I was worth something. I got in the car and rolled down the window. Maybe someday I'll be ready to forgive all of you, I said, looking at my family standing on the porch like strangers. But that day isn't today, and it's not going to be anytime soon. As Rebecca drove away, I watched my childhood home disappear in the side mirror. I felt lighter somehow, like I'd set down a weight I didn't even realize I'd been carrying. How are you feeling? Rebecca asked. Free, I said, and meant it. My new apartment was small, a studio with a tiny kitchen and a bathroom I could barely turn around in. But it was mine. I'd earned it with my own work, my own talent, my own determination. As I unpacked my boxes that weekend, each item felt like a declaration of independence. Over the next 3 months, my business exploded. Rebecca's success story brought in more clients, and word-of-mouth referrals kept my calendar full. I was working with local restaurants, fitness studios, artists, and even a few larger companies that had heard about my work through the small business network in town. I loved the variety of it. One day I was creating a social media campaign for a new bakery, the next I was developing a complete brand strategy for a law firm. Each project was different, challenging, creative. I was making more money than I had at my corporate job, and I was infinitely happier. But more than the financial success, I had found something I'd lost during those dark months of unemployment: respect for myself. I was good at what I did. I was valuable. I was someone people sought out for my expertise and creativity. Rebecca became not just a client but a close friend. She was there to celebrate when I landed my first major client, to brainstorm when I faced challenging projects, to remind me how far I'd come when imposter syndrome crept in. You know what I love most about working with you, she told me one day as we reviewed analytics for her latest campaign. You don't just do the work, you care about the results. You want my business to succeed almost as much as I do. That's what good marketing should do, I replied. It should serve the client's goals, not just check boxes. Exactly. And that's why you're going to be incredibly successful. She was right. By the 6-month mark, I had more work than I could handle alone. I was turning down clients and considering hiring help. I'd moved to a larger apartment with a proper office space, and I'd started speaking at local business networking events about digital marketing strategies. One evening, as I was working late on a campaign for a new wellness center, my phone rang. I almost didn't answer when I saw the caller ID, Theodore. I let it go to voicemail, but curiosity got the better of me. I played the message. Elizabeth, it's Dad. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to call and tell you how proud I am of what you've accomplished. Mrs. Henderson showed me an article about you in the local business journal, and, well, I wanted you to know that we were wrong about you. Completely wrong. I hope someday you'll give us a chance to make things right. I love you, sweetheart. I stared at the phone for a long moment, then deleted the message. 2 weeks later, Anna sent me a text, saw your interview in the paper about supporting local businesses. You look so happy and successful. Miss you. I didn't reply. Jack tried a different approach. He showed up at the coffee shop where I often worked, apparently having gotten my schedule from Rebecca's social media posts. Before you get mad, he said, sliding into the chair across from me, just hear me out. I closed my laptop slowly. You have 5 minutes. I've been thinking a lot about that night, he said. About what I said, what I didn't say. And I realize now that I was jealous. That caught me off guard. Jealous? Of what? Of how much Mom and Dad worried about you, he admitted. I know that sounds crazy, but I was jealous of the attention, even when it was negative attention. I felt like they cared more about your problems than my successes. I studied his face. He looked older somehow, less sure of himself than he had 6 months ago. So when they finally reached their breaking point, he continued, part of me was relieved. Like finally, I wouldn't have to compete with your drama for their attention. My drama. I repeated, ice in my voice. That's not what I meant, he said quickly. I meant their worry about your situation. I knew it was selfish even then, but I was tired of every family gathering being about Elizabeth's job search or Elizabeth's depression or Elizabeth's problems. So you decided to pile on when they attacked me. I decided to be a coward, he said simply. I took the easy path instead of standing up for my sister. And I've regretted it every single day since. I looked at this person who shared my DNA, who had been my constant companion growing up, who had become a stranger in a single evening. Jack, I appreciate you telling me this, I said finally. But it doesn't change anything. When I needed you most, you chose to abandon me. That's not something I can just forgive because you feel bad about it now. I know, he said quietly. But I had to try. You're my sister, and I love you. You loved me then too, I pointed out. It didn't stop you from hurting me. He nodded sadly and stood up. For what it's worth, I'm incredibly proud of what you've built. And I'm sorry it took losing you for me to realize what an amazing person you are. After he left, I sat in the coffee shop for a long time, thinking about forgiveness and family and the people we become when we're tested. A year after that terrible dinner, I was featured on the cover of a regional business magazine as one of 30 under 30 entrepreneurs to watch. The article detailed my journey from unemployment to running a thriving marketing consultancy, and it mentioned how I'd started my business after facing personal challenges that forced me to bet on myself. I didn't mention my family in the interview, but I did talk about the importance of believing in yourself when others don't, about finding the courage to start over, about turning rejection into motivation. The day the magazine came out, I got 17 phone calls from family members, parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, all wanting to reconnect, all proud of my success. I let them all go to voicemail. That evening, there was a knock on my apartment door. When I opened it, All three of them were standing there, Anna, Theodore, and Jack. Before you close the door, Anna said quickly, please just look at this. She handed me a thick envelope. Inside were dozens of newspaper clippings, magazine articles, and printed social media posts, all featuring my work or mentioning my business. They'd been collecting coverage of my success for months. We've been following your career, Theodore said quietly. We're so proud of what you've accomplished. We know we don't deserve forgiveness, Jack added. But we wanted you to know that we see you now. We see how wrong we were. I looked at these three people who had shaped my childhood, who had loved me for 18 years and then discarded me in a moment of frustration and fear. You want to know something? I said finally. The person you see in these articles, the successful entrepreneur, the confident business owner, she exists because you rejected her. I became this person not in spite of what you did to me, but because of it. Their faces fell, but I continued. When you told me I was a burden, when you said you wanted to live without me, you forced me to discover that I could live without you too. And you know what I found? I'm stronger than I ever knew. I'm more capable than you ever believed. And I'm happier without people in my life who see me as a burden. Elizabeth, Anna started, tears streaming down her face. I'm glad you're proud of me now, I said. But your pride doesn't undo the damage you caused. It doesn't erase the nights I cried myself to sleep wondering why I wasn't worthy of my own family's love. I handed the envelope back to Anna. I don't need your validation anymore. I don't need your approval or your pride or your regret. I needed those things a year ago, when I was broken and desperate. But I built myself back up without you, and I'm not going to tear down what I've built just because you've decided I'm worth something now. Theodore stepped forward. What can we do? How can we make this right? You can't, I said simply. Some things can't be undone. You showed me who you really are when things got difficult, and I believe you. I believe that when I needed unconditional love, you gave me conditions. When I needed support, you gave me ultimatums. When I needed family, you gave me rejection. I looked at each of them one more time. I want you to know that I've forgiven you, not for your sake, but for mine. I've let go of the anger because it was holding me back. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean pretending that what you did didn't matter. So that's it? Jack asked, his voice breaking. You're just going to cut us out of your life forever? You cut me out first, I reminded him. I'm just making it official. I stepped back and began to close the door, then paused. I hope you've learned something from this, I said. I hope you never make another person feel as worthless as you made me feel. And I hope you're genuinely happy with the life you chose to live without me. I closed the door softly and leaned against it, listening to their footsteps fade down the hallway. 2 years later, I opened a second office and hired 4 employees. My business had grown beyond anything I'd imagined possible, and I was speaking at conferences across the country about entrepreneurship and resilience. Rebecca, who had become like a sister to me, threw me a party to celebrate the expansion. As I looked around the room at my employees, my clients, my friends, all people who valued me, supported me, believed in me, I realized something profound. I had built a family. Not the family I was born into, but the family I chose. People who saw my worth even when I couldn't see it myself. People who celebrated my successes without reservation and supported me through challenges without condition. Standing in that room full of people who loved and respected me, I felt something I'd been searching for my entire life, unconditional belonging. That night, as I was cleaning up after the party, I found myself thinking about that terrible dinner 2 years ago. The pain of that moment had been so sharp, so devastating, that I thought it would destroy me. Instead, it had been the catalyst for the most incredible transformation of my life. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the article about your company expansion in the Business Journal. Congratulations. You've become everything we always knew you could be. Dad. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Because the truth was, they hadn't known I could be this. If they had truly believed in my potential, they wouldn't have been so quick to discard me when times got tough. But more importantly, I didn't need them to know it anymore. 3 months later, I was invited to speak at a conference about overcoming adversity in business. As I stood on that stage, looking out at an audience of hundreds of entrepreneurs and business leaders, I made a decision to tell my story, the real story, not just the sanitized version I usually shared. 2.5 years ago, I began. The people who were supposed to love me unconditionally told me I was a burden they wanted to live without. That night, I thought my life was over. I thought I was exactly what they said I was, worthless, unmotivated, a failure. The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. But sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is also the best thing. Because when everyone else stops believing in you, you have two choices: you can believe them, or you can prove them wrong. I chose to prove them wrong. I told them about Rebecca, about that first project, about building my business from nothing but determination and talent that had been there all along. I told them about learning to bet on myself when no one else would. The family that rejected me thinks my success vindicates them somehow, I continued. They think tough love worked, that pushing me out was actually helping me. But they're wrong. My success doesn't vindicate their cruelty, it highlights how unnecessary it was. I didn't need to be torn down to be built back up. I just needed someone to see my potential and give me a chance. The applause was thunderous, but more importantly, I saw recognition in the faces in the audience, people who had been where I was, who had been written off and underestimated, who had found strength they didn't know they had. After the speech, dozens of people came up to share their own stories of family rejection, career setbacks, and personal transformation. Many of them had built successful businesses or careers after being told they weren't good enough, smart enough, or worthy enough. "Thank you for sharing your real story," a young woman told me. "My parents kicked me out when I came out as gay 3 years ago. I've been afraid I'd never be successful enough to prove them wrong, but hearing your story gives me hope." "You don't need to prove anything to them," I told her. "You just need to prove it to yourself." As I flew home from the conference, I reflected on how completely my life had changed. The scared, broken young woman who had walked out into the cold that December night barely resembled the confident businesswoman I'd become. I thought about my parents, still living in the same house, still hosting family dinners where my empty chair served as a reminder of their choice. I wondered if they ever regretted not just their words, but their inability to see who I really was before they drove me away. But mostly, I thought about the future I was building, a future filled with purpose, success, and people who valued me for exactly who I was. When I got home, there was a package waiting for me. Inside was a wedding invitation. Jack and Rose were getting married. A handwritten note fell out as I opened it. "I know you probably won't come, but I couldn't get married without inviting my sister. I think about you every day and regret every day that I chose the wrong side when it mattered most. You've become an incredible woman, and I'm sorry I won't be there to see what amazing things you do next. I love you, and I'm proud to be your brother, even if I don't deserve to be. Jack." I stared at the invitation for a long time, running my fingers over the elegant script. Part of me, a small part, felt a pang of sadness at missing this milestone in my brother's life. But a larger part of me felt nothing at all, and I realized that was exactly how healing was supposed to feel. I put the invitation in a drawer and went back to working on a new marketing campaign for a startup founded by a young entrepreneur who reminded me of myself 3 years ago, full of talent and potential, just needing someone to believe in her vision. 6 months later, I received a call from Rebecca. She was crying, but they were happy tears. "Elizabeth, you're not going to believe this," she said. "I just got a call from a major publisher. They want to turn my blog into a book deal, a six-figure advance, marketing support, the whole thing. And it's all because of the platform you helped me build. I felt tears spring to my own eyes. Rebecca, that's incredible. You deserve this so much. I couldn't have done any of this without you, she said. You didn't just help me with marketing, you helped me believe my voice mattered. You showed me that my story was worth telling. After we hung up, I sat in my office, my beautiful, successful office with its team of talented employees and walls covered with awards and recognition, and I felt profound gratitude. Not for the family that had rejected me, but for the rejection itself. Because it had led me here, to this life, to these relationships, to this version of myself that was stronger and more authentic than I'd ever imagined possible. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in years. I wrote a letter, not to my family, but to the girl I used to be, the one who sat at that dinner table and felt her world crumble around her. Dear Elizabeth, I wrote, I know right now you think your life is over. You think their words define you, that their rejection means you're worthless. But I'm writing from 3 years in the future to tell you something important. They're wrong about you. They're wrong about everything. You are not a burden. You are not lazy or unmotivated. You are not a failure. You are someone with incredible talent who is going through a difficult time, and the people who should be supporting you are too scared and selfish to see your potential. In 3 years, you will have built something amazing. You will be successful beyond your wildest dreams, not because they pushed you away, but because you were always capable of this. You just needed to stop letting their voices drown out your own. You will find a family that chooses you every day. You will find work that fulfills you. You will find strength you never knew you had. You will find peace with their choice to live without you, because you will discover that you're better off living without them too. Your worth was never determined by their approval, and your future was never dependent on their support. You are enough, exactly as you are, and you always have been. Love. The woman you're going to become. I folded the letter and put it in my desk drawer, next to Jack's wedding invitation and all the other remnants of a life I'd outgrown. Then I opened my laptop and got back to work, building the empire I'd started the night they told me I was a burden they wanted to live without. Because the most beautiful revenge isn't proving them wrong, it's becoming so successful and happy that their opinion becomes irrelevant. And that's exactly what I did.